Let's talk about more setups in the Naruto story that were never paid off, and if this was a good or bad decision in Kishimoto's part. Starting off with Sakura and Ino's rivalry that started strong in the tuning exams, and I know a lot of people detest their fight in the preliminaries, but it's actually not that bad. It's a decent fight. I don't know why people hate it so much, probably because the anime version was so slow with the flashbacks. The anime doesn't know how to do flashbacks. It was far more palatable in the manga, and the fight itself is fine. It's between two young girls with motivations that make sense for young girls. The problem is the rivalry kinda died there. Now, sure, that fight is not a bad conclusion for the rivalry per se, because they do develop a lot. But after that, the rivalry became very, very forgotten in Naruto Shippuden especially. Sakura and Ino just make a couple of jokes during the entire series about the other, especially when Sai's around, and that's pretty much it. Nothing else about the rivalry. Now, I can see that there wasn't really space in the story to accommodate their rivalry especially, and they had an interesting conclusion-esque scene in their battle in the tuning exams anyway, so I see why Kishimoto had to cut that down from the story, and I don't blame him. A lot of people dislike Sakura versus Ino anyway, and they wouldn't want to see more of that. Although I may disagree, and I don't think the fight's bad. Now let's move on to another setup, which was Sakumo Hatake, Kakashi's dad. Well, this character was said to be stronger than the legendary Sannin, which is a bold claim. Now, granted, the power of the Sannin is very much overhyped in universe, because in the end of the series, they're kind of ants. They don't do much, especially Jiraiya, who gets fondled by 3 paths of pain almost and then dies. But of course, this was because of how the story changed over time and how Kishimoto adjusted the power in the universe for the god tier ninjas in the verse to be much stronger than he initially intended, which I personally like. It's not a bad thing, it's just bad when Kage shows up. The thing is, Sakumo was said to be stronger than the Sannin, which in the beginning of the story at least were a big deal. We also saw his tragic backstory and how that affected Kakashi his entire life, and then we got that brief scene where Kakashi meets him in limbo whenever he is killed by pain. Now that's an interesting conclusion for the character. Kakashi forgives him for what he did, and he also understands his father. I mean, not everybody can be strong all the time, and he had a moment of weakness. He had nobody to seek help from, and it ended up bad. Kakashi forgives him in a very emotional scene. Now, this wasn't really a bad conclusion for Sakumo's character. He was never really a master character in the story. He was much more of a plot device for Kakashi. But the thing is, when you hype up a character's power level, you're expected to see that power one day? I don't know. That's just me, but I thought we were going to see Sakumo fighting eventually. Be it on a flashback, or maybe even in the war arc, when he is brought back via Edo Tensei. I mean, this guy was set up in the first arc of Naruto Shippuden when Chiyo sees Kakashi and dashes at him like mad, saying, "I'm gonna kill you because of what you did with my children," because Sakumo had actually killed Chiyo's son. Those things, they kinda give me a vibe that this character was supposed to show up eventually in the story, but that never happened. Kishimoto decided to do that in the pain arc without a fight or anything, which is an option, of course. He definitely tried to make the audience on the edge of their seats, not knowing if Kakashi was actually dead or not during that scene, if Kakashi would come back somehow, and he did, with Pain's Rin Tensei. The same thing can be applied to another powerful character in the lore of Naruto, which is Shisui Uchiha, a fan favorite of many people, which I don't really understand. He's literally a plot device meant to free Itachi during the war arc, and that's his entire purpose in the story. Now, according to everyone, Kodo Matsukami is the strongest genjutsu in the verse, even though they're able to break Mifune out of it just by telling him his entire genjutsu. Doesn't strike me as very powerful, but Shisui was also known as Shisui the Teleporter. He used the body flicker technique mid-battle, which is something most people can't do because they don't have chakra control or the proficiency to do it. They only use it to flee or just traverse long distances. But Shisui used it to be extremely fast during combats. Honestly, the main reason a lot of people like Shisui is probably because he's really cool to play in the Storm games. But other than that, the character is just really hyped up in universe several times. Ao sees Shisui's eye in Danzo and has a panic attack essentially, saying, "Oh, that eye! I saw it before! It was from Shisui, it has that same color. Itachi mentioned Shisui. Shisui's even mentioned in the flashback in part 1 when those Uchiha guys come to confront Itachi about Shisui's death because they think Itachi killed him and then he awakens his Mangetsu and all that. But it actually wasn't the case. Shisui just threw himself in the river. By the way, did you know that Shisui in Japanese means death in the water, which is pretty ironic. I mean, I didn't see this one coming, Kishimoto. So I always thought we would eventually see some type of action from Shisui, be it in a flashback or in the war arc again. But we just see his crow eye and that's it. He just has this convenient plot device, no jutsu. And if you think about it, why wouldn't Kabuto be able to find Shisui DNA? It should be not too difficult to find. The Leaf Village retrieved Shisui's body, and if he could find Madara's DNA and Hashirama's DNA, I mean Orochimaru found Hashirama's DNA, but you get the point. You could probably find Shisui. Kishimoto just didn't want to bring him in the battle, I suspect, because he didn't want to have to deal with Kodo Matsukami during the chaos of the war arc, because it's a jutsu that can really affect things, and it's difficult to just ride around. But if he didn't want to do that, he could just say that, yeah, the Edo Tensei cannot perform the jutsu because it requires too much chakra and the Edo Tenseis are nerfed. There are ways around it if he just wanted to bring Shisui back. And I think people would have liked it, to be honest, because anything that's remotely related to Itachi has the fanboys just gushing over. So I don't know why Kishimoto never did that. Still, a setup that was never paid off. We never got to see Shisui's true power. Another setup that was never really paid off was Kakashi knowing 1,000 jutsus in the story. His nickname is the Copy Ninja, the guy who copied 1,000 jutsus, and he doesn't use that many jutsus. Most of the jutsus he uses often are not even copied. Raikiri, he created it. Kamui, I mean, you could say he copied that from Obito, but it's technically his eye, so not really. The summoning jutsu, he doesn't really copy that, does he? The lightning style clone, I don't think he copied that one. The lightning style hound, he probably created that one too. That leaves us with the mud wall, which is a jutsu he uses often and he probably copied in the past. The thing is, Kakashi's copying shtick was only ever relevant in part 1 of the story against Zabuza, and then he used it once against Kisame, which was really cool too, but then it just kind of vanished. As a matter of fact, that entire facet of the Sharingan vanished after the time skip. People no longer copied abilities with the Sharingan. I mean, do you remember Sasuke copying Rock Lee's movements to get strong to fight against Gaara in the Chunin exams? Yeah, that never really happens again with Sasuke. But Kakashi's even worse, because Kakashi was known for that, and he never really copies anything in Naruto Shippuden. Sure, he uses a couple of jutsus that he copied here and there after the time skip, such as the Hinin and the Mist jutsu against the Itachi body double, and he also uses the Rasengan against Naruto's wind-style Rasengan, which we can probably assume that he copied, but still, he doesn't do much. For a guy that knows 1,000 jutsus, I would expect he'd be pulling all types of weird, wacky jutsus that are very situational in the middle of fights. Kakashi is literally the type of character that's the most fun to write a fight for, because if you pull something really weird and kind of out of nowhere, you can just say, yeah, it was one of the 1,000 jutsus that he knows. Now, of course, the nickname may be exaggerated, and that seems to be very much the case. He doesn't know literally 1,000 jutsus. It's just something that says, yeah, this guy, he's gonna copy whatever you do. He's known for that. It doesn't mean he literally has 1,000 jutsus, but he should have way more than what he depicts in the show. No, let's just give him a perfect Susanoo out of nowhere. Did you notice that before Kakashi gets his dual MS and Obito is talking to him via his limbo stuff, he says, well, you had a nickname, didn't you? Kakashi of the Sharingan. And actually, that wasn't Kakashi's nickname. His nickname was the Copy Ninja. Now sure, you can assume he had several different nicknames, but his iconic nickname was the Copy Ninja. I get the feeling Kishimoto thought, yeah, I think Copy Ninja is not really gonna suit Kakashi for this moment when he's going to spam his 2 MSs, you know, so Kakashi of the Sharingan probably fits the situation better. Still, yeah, kind of disappointing that he never gets to use a billion different jutsus during his fights. The video games do a better job with that, I think. Kakashi has a lot of jutsus in all types of Naruto video games, so it's fun to play Kakashi too. Another plot that was forgotten in the story was Yugao's revenge plot. Well, if you don't know what I'm talking about, Yugao is the girl with purple hair that was Hayate's girlfriend. Remember when Hayate died, he was pretty much one-tapped by Baki before the final round of the Chunin exams after he witnessed Gaara murdering Dosu and all that? Well, Yugao, Hayate's girlfriend, sworn that she would take revenge upon the man who killed her boyfriend. And the way the character was depicted in the Chunin exams arc, well, it was very much implied that there was going to be some sort of conclusion to her story. Sure, she didn't have a major role, not in the slightest, but something was set up in there. Something that you would expect would happen in the future. It could be minor as well, just like her appearance in the Chunin exams in the first place, but still, never happens. She never takes her revenge. She never does anything about it. There's no type of arc for that character, no conclusion. She never has a spoken line again. Of course, she does have a filler episode in the war arc depicting how things panned out, which doesn't make sense in the continuity, but anyway, Kishimoto set her up for something and just never really bothered to do anything about it. And I kind of see why. She was a really minor character. The only time I remember her appearing in the manga again was when Tsunade was pumping out her chakra to the Katsuyas around the village when Pain was attacking, and she was one of the Anbu members surrounding her doing, guard duty, I guess. But anyway, there are things much more important in the story, and I agree that not everything needs a conclusion like this girl. Another setup that was kind of forgotten was just the Feudal Lords themselves. They were established as these very powerful entities in their respective lands, countries, whatever they are, and that they kind of have the same type of power as the Hokage, but this is never really explained. Like, why do these guys have so much power? Is it just because they fund the shinobi system? Why would they need somebody to fund them if they themselves get the money from the missions? They could just fund themselves, the ninja villages, couldn't they? The Feudal Lords only appear when they're like really necessary to move the plot forward, such as when the 5 great nations are coming together in order to fight against Madara and the Akatsuki in the war arc, or when Danzo's being appointed as the new Hokage, the Fire Feudal Lord shows up and says, yeah, Danzo, go ahead. And then during the war arc, we get a couple of scenes of them just being complete buffoons, playing cards and not really caring about anything in the world. They are all painted as extremely incompetent in every scene they have, especially the Fire Feudal Lord. He looks like a complete idiot. This begs the question, why would the ninja villages be so subservient to them? Now, you could say it's to move the system along. The shinobi system requires the Feudal Lords to keep them under control so that things don't spiral out of control again like in the Warring States period. But then again, why these guys? How do they get into power? Why are some random dudes that have no powers, that have no armies, that just have, mercenary arms essentially? The ninjas are kind of mercenaries if you think about it. Why are they in power? How do they get there? Now, of course, Naruto is a shonen anime. It's not gonna be heavily political, but I kind of like political stories. I wish Naruto had more politics to it. And the Feudal Lords could have been explored in so many different ways, but they are just forgotten and used as very brief plot devices to just move the story along whenever they're needed. They never cause any conflict in the story. They never really change the status quo of the story. And you would imagine that such powerful people would have the ability to do that. Now let's talk about a fan favorite character, Minato, the 4th Hokage, the Yellow Flash. There was a particular setup with Minato that was never really paid off, and I get the feeling it was kind of a joke. But still, not really. Remember when Minato was about to attack Jubito, but then Jubito kind of took control over the 10 Tails and just denied him cutting his arm and all that good stuff? Well, there was a jutsu Minato was going to perform against Obito in that state. A jutsu that's implied to be Minato's magnum opus. This jutsu has a very long name. It's Minato's Flying Thunder God, Space-Time Hurricane Flash Sequential Steps, Style 0, also known as Rasen Flash Super Dance Howl Stage 3. Whew! That's a mouthful, isn't it? Now, there's this joke that Minato really enjoys long names for his jutsus. Whenever Naruto and Sasuke combine the Rasen Shuriken with the Madarasu, he also gives that a very convoluted name, and that's the joke. But Minato actually had that jutsu. He was about to perform it. He pulled like 10 kunais. He was going to toss them all over the place, and you would assume he would teleport everywhere with his Rasengan, spamming it on the target. But Minato never gets to do that jutsu. He's always like, yeah, I'm gonna use that jutsu now. No, I can't. Oh, I'm gonna use that jutsu now. No, Obito just cut my arm off. I can't. It's kind of frustrating, and I get that feeling it's very much on purpose. Kishimoto just wants to play with us. You're not gonna see that cool jutsu Minato's about to do because something bad's gonna happen. And it's a setup that's never paid off. Minato talks about the jutsu. He says, I'm gonna use that jutsu, and he never does so. However, once again, the video games come in for the save because we get to see how this jutsu looks like in the video games. I think Sound 4 has the best animation for it, and it's described as this. Minato throws several Flying Thunder God kunais at his opponent, teleports to one of them, and kicks the opponent, sending them flying away. While they are still in the air, he creates a shadow clone which teleports repeatedly to the Flying Thunder God kunai around the opponent, constantly slashing them. Minato then goes into Nine-Tails Chakra mode, charging a Rasengan. The shadow clone catches the opponent and teleports them directly in front of Minato, who lands his Rasengan, sending the opponent a long way before the Rasengan expands. And that's the jutsu. Now, what Minato used against Obito when Obito attacked the Leaf Village was his Flying Raijin level 2 with the Rasengan combination. This will be the Flying Raijin level 3, which involves a much more complex combo with a shadow clone and much more teleporting. And you have to admit, it would have been amazing to look at. But alas, Kishimoto played us this time. I think he did that very much on purpose. Now let's talk about a very obscure character in the Naruto series that had a bit of a setup but never really paid off. Do you remember Shiho, the very quirky scientist girl during the Pain arc that was helping Shikamaru analyze the code Jiraiya left behind? She had those very strange looking glasses that were supposed to be very thick because she's a science girl. She has to be nerdy and therefore she has to wear thick glasses. Hey, I'm not gonna say she was the most original character, but she did have a setup with Shikamaru. She had a crush on Shikamaru, and that was very much apparent in every scene they were on. Shikamaru was absolutely clueless about it because Kishimoto really likes this trope of the guy being clueless, that the girl likes him, and Shikamaru and Naruto suffered the worst for that. But anyway, when they were investigating the code Jiraiya left on Fukasaku's back, she was always there with Shikamaru trying to help him and Naruto out, and then she was also kind of simping over Shikamaru, but not in an overt type of way like Karin simps for Sasuke, for example. And then after the Pain arc, she literally never appears again in the story. She never has a page in the manga, a single panel in the manga. She doesn't even have a filler episode, which is something because every single minor character in the story got a bad filler episode during the war arc, and she doesn't do anything. I suppose she was one of those single arc characters that had just a very small purpose in the story, and Kishimoto just thought, yeah, she's not really that interesting, and I kind of agree with him. She's too tropey, and I mean, let's be real, Shikamaru and Tamara is probably the best romance in the series. It would have never happened between the two of them. Never. Just like it will never happen between you and the girl you like, because let's be real, we are Naruto fans. We are destined to die alone. Though 4% of my audience are girls, so maybe you guys have a chance in the end of the day. Anyway, moving on to the next setup that was never paid off. Mangetsu Hozuki, aka Suigetsu's brother. Now, being from the Hozuki clan, this guy was going to be powerful already because they can dissolve their body into water, use the water pistol. They have pretty powerful stuff. I mean, negating physical attacks is going to be powerful in any type of battle series. I don't care what you say. But this guy had something even more special. He was said to be this absolute prodigy in the Mist Village, and a very important thing, it was said that this guy had mastered every single sword of the 7 ninja swordsmen. So this was a big deal. I mean, you have to assume it takes a long time to practice to master one of those swords, and he mastered all 7 of them. Now, how he did that? I don't know. Did the other ninjas in the 7 ninja swordsmen just borrow their swords? exists. Like, was Mangetsu just like, hello, can I have your sword for a day, please? I would like to practice with it. Now, the thing is, this guy does appear in the war arc. He is brought back via Edo Tensei, but he comes back without a sword. Very interesting choice here. Now, I think it is implied that his original sword, the one that he actually had possession over, was Hiramekare, Chojuro's sword, and therefore he didn't really have any sword, but just give another sword to him. If he could master all 7 of them, why couldn't Kabuto just give one to him? In the end of the day, he was kind of disappointing in the war arc. He never really paid off the promise that, yes, I know every single sword. It would have been much more interesting if, I don't know, Kabuto fought with him using all the swords. Maybe a different member of the 7 Ninja Swordsmen could just jump in, toss him a particular sword he needed in a situation, and then he was just dual wielding the swords and then using several swords at the same time. I don't know. It's just that this statement that he mastered every single sword, it never paid off, you know? Suigetsu was very envious of his brother just because of that, because he literally mastered every sword of the Ninja Swordsman, and yet we don't see this mastery paying off. What gives? Come on, Kishimoto. The next setup that never really paid off was Yamato, the captain of Team Kakashi when Kakashi was out. This guy had wood style. It's a very big deal for you to have wood style. He was the only guy who could ever really tame the 9 tails in the Leaf Village if Naruto went ballistic, so naturally he was important to have around. He plays an important role in the Tenchi Bridge arc, but he doesn't do that much in there anyway. His personality is really kind of bland. He helps Naruto train the Rasen Shuriken, and I mean, he tosses a couple of wood sticks on Kakuzu, and then that's it. That's what he does. He's not present for the Pain invasion. He's just like racing back to the Leaf Village when his hand pager device tells him that the 9 tails is going ballistic. He builds some houses for the Leaf Village after Pain's destruction, and he disappears. Yeah, he literally disappears for the entire war arc, which is a lot of chapters. So yeah, the meme back in the Naruto community was, where's Yamato, man? Did Kishimoto forget he exists? I don't really like Yamato very much. I didn't mind that he wasn't present during the entire war arc. He was always bland to me. I never really liked his wood style. It always seemed a little underwhelming to me, so it's fine that he isn't in the war arc. I don't really like the character, but, you know, it was a setup that Kishimoto definitely didn't pay off, especially because Orochimaru returns in the war arc, and you would imagine these 2 characters would have a history together and they would meet each other essentially, but no, it doesn't happen. I mean, Yamato is one of those classic characters that doesn't really have an arc. He never really changes anything. It's just the same guy throughout the entire story. And if the character is charismatic and has something powerful about them that not changing is important, then it's cool, but if it's someone as boring as Yamato, then I don't care about the character. Watch this other video right here for more entertaining Naruto content. Like this video as well if you've enjoyed it. It really helps me out with the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe to my channel if you want to see more content like this, and thank you so much for watching.